Welcome, everyone. It's so great to have all of you coming back from so far, some of you, and those of you who are new in the room, welcome. You are here for channeling today, and the way I run this event is that I usually talk a little bit about myself, and then I talk about my journey to channeling, as well as update everyone on where my channeling is taking us, because what my messages seem to do is build on each other based on what's happening on the planet. So I like to give my interpretation of what I'm bringing through, and then we'll do a live channeling portion. So I will channel in the guides, teachers, masters best suited for everyone who's assembled here and beyond, because we film today. And you are able to ask questions. I usually have those written down on paper so we can get them onto the camera. And the guides, masters, beings that are most suited to answer those questions will come through me. So this is an open forum, and you guys are here to help me facilitate this. So I appreciate the fact that you are all here. Since some of you don't know who I am and have not been exposed to my work, I'm just going to give a really brief summary. I haven't done this in a long time, of who I am, how I came to be in this place that I'm in, and what my channeling is focused on. So this is not something that I, growing up, or even in my early adolescent and adult years, ever imagined I'd be doing. I lived a very mainstream life, very conventional life. Grew up Catholic, middle-class family. I got a 4-year college degree in marketing, journalism, PR, went into the corporate world, lived in that corporate world for a long time, was very successful, traveled around the country, and then I had a child, got married, had a baby, and couldn't bear to leave her at daycare, and just decided that I needed to leave that whole corporate world behind and stay at home, which I did and I loved. And I'm this firstborn A-type personality. I do everything to a T, and approached motherhood that way, same way I approached my whole corporate, career. And I was the volunteer coordinator for everything under the sun. I was the PTA vice president. I ran the Girl Scout troops, the Girl Scout organization, the local social committee, the church group, you name it. I was large and in charge of everything. And as all of us do, usually at some point in our lives, come to a spiritual awakening. I did as well. It wasn't extremely pleasant for me. I ended up, after the second birth of my second child, with a struggle in my life with chronic pain. Kind of came out of nowhere. I started experiencing very intense pain in my low back, my hip, my leg. Was in this whole Western medicine, right, hamster wheel of getting my new insurance card every month, going to a new doctor, getting prescriptions, PT, right, all of these things. And year after year after year, getting worse and worse and worse. So I believe that the universe has a divine alignment with our record. And it knows when things are becoming so stagnant that we need to be shaken up a little bit in our energy to actually allow a change or an opening to come into our life to accept something different that we really need to integrate. And for me, this was a move. So my family decided to make a move across town. I was not in favor at all of this move because I lived in a really cushy neighborhood with people that were taking care of me. I was in chronic pain. I had all these beautiful neighbors around me, picking my kids up off the bus, helping me pick up my groceries. And I didn't want to leave, but I did because it was just something that had to happen. So I ended up across town in a different neighborhood, different feel. Tried to make all that volunteer stuff work, and it was a disaster. Couldn't make a friend to save my life. I was 40 years old, I was in chronic pain, and I had to take a pretty hard look at myself in the mirror. It was a really difficult time in my life. My kids were having a hard time adjusting. I was having a hard time adjusting. It was like this grand halt of everything that was familiar to me and this big space opening up around me of unknown. And what ended up happening to me was this beautiful path that I was led down that would have never happened had I not been in chronic pain and had I not made this move. So I believe that we have these very difficult challenges or circumstances come up in our lives because they're moving us along the path to something new, different, that we never would have considered before. For me, ultimately, this was channeling. Now, I didn't know what channeling was. I was not in this whole, world at all. This conversation was foreign to me. But I began to meditate. So I was in this new neighborhood, this new environment. I moved into a house that had a reverse osmosis filter that was filtering the fluoride out of my water. No idea what fluoride was, that it was detrimental to this type of connection. I had learned that meditation could help me resolve my chronic pain, or at least ease it. And I had gotten so bad that I had started to have my nerves severed, ablated every 6 months. I was on every medication under the sun. I was washing it down with alcohol. I stopped driving my kids because I was afraid I was going to hurt them. And this meditation practice, because I was so A-type, began to be the very center focus of my life. So I brought it in morning, afternoon, evening, very religiously, and I didn't miss a day. And thankfully, I had the freedom to do that. You know, as a stay-at-home mom, 2 kids going to school, and I dedicated all of my energy to this. And some amazing things started to happen. Started to connect with a variety of beings that I didn't understand. I started to receive information from people in non-physical, things that they were not saying to me out loud that I was picking up on in their energy. And this whole thing was really freaking me out, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't have anyone in my world to share this with. I didn't know what it was. So I really was forced, I guess, to just delve in and start questioning those that were coming through. Questioning the experiences I had, questioning my meditations. And I started getting more and more and more. And one day, because as this information was coming through, I was journaling it, I decided to voice record myself with my iPhone. Because, you know, I'm meditating, my vibration's changing, stuff's coming in faster, I wanted to hold on to it. So I hit that record button on my iPhone and was completely blown away with what I heard. Because I heard my voice change, I was talking about things that I've never heard before. I started connecting with extraterrestrials, which was not something I was willing to talk about, you know, at the local PTA bake sale. And my world just really started to immediately change pretty fast. So I did heal myself 100% of this chronic pain. And I credit this connection. I began working with guides, not to heal my pain, but just to understand my journey. And amazing things started showing up in my physical reality because my vibration changed. All of a sudden, I was led to books and practitioners and treatments and Eastern philosophy, things that I had never considered before. Changed my whole diet. I changed my whole lifestyle. I brought in a variety of different alternative techniques, supplementation, and 2 years later, 1.5, 2 years later, I was 100% pain-free. Got off all my medications. I'm in better health today at almost 50 than I was back in the day that I was going through all of this. And I believe that this can happen for everybody. I truly believe that we are all channels. So as I'm connecting to this information in the way that I do, you all have a unique pathway to tap into information as well. Might not be the same as me, and it probably isn't. But when we change our vibration, those pathways begin to open, and all of a sudden, our world begins to change. So I began stepping into this more and more, and I attracted Flower of Life, which is an organization that Ethan and I are heading up here in town, which is focused on furthering human consciousness. And as I began to step into that organization, I had the support around me, the people that were having this conversation that told me, you got to put this stuff out there. And I was not in favor of that. I actually argued with my guides, like, you know, why me? This is not what I planned to do with my life. This is not anything that close to what I wanted in my life, but now I see. This is exactly where I was meant to be. And as I look back on my journey, even as a child, I remember now having this connection. I had no idea what it was at the time. I always had a constant communication going on in my head with something or somebody outside of me. And I do that now. And it took me to recognize that by going through this process. And I just had this light bulb go off, and I thought, I've always done this. I just was, I guess, directed away from it. You know, we all are through teachings and religion and all the things we're subjected to in society. So now I channel a variety of beings, collectives. I was told very early on I was meant to be a channel and bring in messages about the shift that we were going through here on the planet. Had no idea what that meant at the time, but now I have a very good idea about what that means today. So my channeling focuses on not only, I guess, some of it that I'm going to talk about today being a reptilian consciousness that is here on our planet, but especially how we are going to shift this whole situation that we find ourselves in. Lack of sovereignty, the way that we've designed all of our structures on this planet, financial, government, healthcare, we've gotten it a little backwards. And so most of my messages are involving the collective consciousness coming back together as a one and how that works in our singular perspective, because we're still here to be physical, singular beings, but we forgot that we were a one race, that we were a one earth collective. Any questions about that? Channeling, what I do, how I do it? You can raise your hand if you have a question. I want this to be interactive. So if you're having an experience, you have a question about anything that's going on the planet, yeah, feel free.
So when you talk with the spirits, is it more of like a voice in your head, or do you get a lot of feelings, smells, sensations, things like that?
I do. So it's changed for me a lot. I can consciously channel, and I am also a trance channel. So what you'll see today is trance channeling, meaning that my consciousness is pretty much over there somewhere, and I am outside of my body. And the guide collective group of beings that is speaking to you as the audience is using my consciousness, my words, concepts that are familiar to me, my hands, my eyes, right, to express a message. So I'm a conduit for that. I also consciously channel. And what I recognized early on, and what I believe these pathways relate to, is our extrasensory. So we have these beautiful extrasensory tools. And I think we all have one dominant pathway in. And for me, I was clairaudient, hearing. And for me, throughout my life, I've been very sensitive to hearing. Like I can hear a pin drop. I'm not a very, heavy sleeper. Somebody gets up and tries to sneak out of the house, there's no way I'm going to hear it. I love music. I love listening to audio. I'm not one that likes to sit and watch, do things like watch TV or watch interviews or things like that. So, hearing is my number one. And so once I realized I was clairaudient, I began to understand that I could pick up on the vibration in my body. So oftentimes what will happen to me is I'll get this really buzzy, light sensation in my body. And that's an alert to me that I need to tune in and listen. And I can hear some amazing things when that happens. I've also started, once those two extrasensory tools really came solidly online, to begin to use my inner and outer sight. So more for me, inner sight, I will receive visions, and a lot of times my outer sight involves synchronicities or being led to specific material and things like that, which I think we all have. But it's across the board. So for me, mostly, it's the two most dominant things for me are the clairaudience and the, I would call, clairsentience, ability to tap in and feel the energy. Yeah. Yep.
Now, this may be a silly question.
No,
like I have 3 dead brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Would you, like if we were doing like a one-on-one, would that be what you do? I mean, not.
Yes. Well, so I think there's a big difference between being a medium and being a channel. And I typically would say, I mean, we're all mediums, right? But mediums will typically focus on those souls or those imprints of those souls who have passed on. And I can do that. I have done that. I do it a little bit differently than most mediums do. So in a session with you, if I was to do a session with you, the guides that would come in would be best suited for whatever the intention was that you had. And a lot of times people will leave their intention open and they'll say, I just want the best information to come through for my highest good. And if those brothers need to come in and clear something up, heal something, they most certainly will. But oftentimes, I don't perceive them as the soul that they were. Typically, they're in some stage of transition, or they've moved on to other places. Yeah, right? They've moved on to other places. And we'll get some interesting information. It really comes from a different vantage point than I think a lot of mediums are bringing in, like memories and visceral information about your linear timeline. A lot of times these souls that have passed on that I work with, they're giving us more multidimensional information. So yes, I am able to do that. Yeah. Yes.
I believe like there's like because you can channel with the aliens and stuff.
Yes.
I believe that there's some that aren't very nice, I guess what you're saying.
I agree.
So you don't they don't try to come in, do they?
I have had very little experience with that at all. I do believe that that can happen. So I'll give you a couple different perspectives on this. So back to the extrasensory. You're always going to know if you're tapping into something that isn't higher vibrational. And the reason for that is it's typically going to be fear-based, or it's going to evoke something in your energy that feels off or fear-based. And that's why those extrasensory tools are there. But I also believe it's an energetic or vibrational match. So when I'm channeling, there's a mix of frequencies that is taking place. So these interdimensionals, Pleiadians, whoever it is that needs to come in, they hold a specific vibration that is much higher than what we typically would hold in this room or in this dimension. But there's an arrangement that takes place by which they match my frequency, and there's a middle ground. So in order for that to take place, I have to uphold my frequency to be a part of that match. So to simplify it, if we're choosing things in our lives to focus on that are angry, fearful, television shows that are angry, fearful, we're eating foods maybe that are holding those types of vibrations, we feel that way about ourselves, we're going to be more susceptible to bringing information in from those types of beings.
What about them coming in and like putting implants and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
How can they get in? Am I allowing that on some level, I guess? The mean ones. I know the good ones do too, but there's been a few incidents where I call them the mean ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that happens. That takes place. And there are some collective races that are not in service to the universe or service to humanity. I personally, based on my channeling, believe that's a very small percentage of what happens here. And I think that there are implants, energetic and otherwise, that are placed within humans. My experience in readings has been that when those implants are there, they're often for a higher purpose. So what happens is when we have experiences with ships, and let's say we're taken on a ship, we have a literal visceral experience or dream state, whatever it may be, our vibration is changing. We can't possibly in our human form interpret that information as we come back into this density. We almost enter this plasmic state. They call it a plasmic state. And the plasma contains the information. So we come back and we filter that information through the beliefs and the imprints that we have. So we've had a culture here about extra-dimensional races and ETs that has really caused a huge fear vibration here on the earth. So a lot of people have had these experiences on ships with energetic implants and things like this. They come back in that plasmic state, and they're interpreting their experience through a set of criteria that's been here on the planet that really isn't leading itself to the actual incident. Do you see what I'm saying? So I believe that happens. I think that it's a small number. I think that can be misinterpreted. But I think it's, again, I don't want to say it's a vibrational match. I think sometimes it is. But we have to also consider that some of us have contracts with specific races. It's hard to pinpoint your situation exactly unless we were to sit in that hour-long session and really dive into, they're going to go into your blueprint, they're going to go into your contracts, they're going to go into that unique situation and break down exactly what happened there. So things are timed to our record. We have a lot of different alignments that take place that cause these experiences to happen. It's hard to pinpoint. But do I believe that happens? Yes. Can you overcome that? I believe so. Can you get more information on it and put it into a new perspective? Yes. And I don't know if you know Whitley Strieber. Have you ever heard of Whitley Strieber? You should really read his story. He's an amazing man who had an implant experience. And I'm just going to summarize it really quick, but I encourage you to read his book. I can't remember the name of it. But he had an interesting experience where he had an implant. He had an off-planet experience. He had an implant put in. He knew it was there. I think it's behind his ear, and he feels it. So at certain times, it'll buzz, and he knows that there's an extra dimensional consciousness that's tuning in to something that's going on. And it's usually related to disclosure. If he's talking about something with disclosure, or he's doing presentations, he'll feel that buzz. So he immediately wanted this implant taken out. And he went to a doctor that specialized in it. And the implant actually ended up moving as soon as they went in it. But his wife, from the very first day, said, I have a strong feeling that you need to leave that implant in. And she didn't know why, but she said, I just feel like it's there for something positive, something good. And what ended up happening, long story short, is his wife passed on, and he's able to communicate with his wife through this implant on the other side. And they're writing a book together, and he's been downloading all this information from his wife on the other side who crossed over through this. It's just a beautiful, heartwarming story. So something that was really fearful and really aggravating to him actually turned out to be something, completely different. So there are stories like that as well that are amazing. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
This is in regards to actually listening for information. You're saying we all pick it up.
Yeah.
I believe that. But I struggle still discerning what I'm listening for. I mean, it sounds really bizarre, but so even a tool or, journaling is one, but I've tried like a question answer kind of form, and then just that doubt of, am I making this up? Or how do you know where your mind starts and stops? And I don't know.
Yeah.
You say you hear clearly. I always wondered the story was at like distinct different tones that made it so clear for you.
Well, it's very subtle. I'm going to give a couple analogies of this. The first thing I want to say that's coming in when you're talking about this is a lot of us go into this type of connection with a specific expectation. A lot of times it's because we lack the clarity to make the decisions that we need to make in our life to move forward. So we kind of have this resistance or this expectation around this type of connection. We want the guidance. We want to know what it is we're supposed to do and when we're supposed to do it. And for you, I would say try to just stay more open, not go in with any expectation of a question answer, a topic, something that you have to know or understand, and just go into meditation as a blank slate. Because that'll help you tune in really uniquely to how you perceive and receive information. Okay, but what I'll say for me is it's such a subtle thing. When I ask a question, if it comes from my mind or if it comes from elsewhere, I really have to tune into my energy body, and it's like a feeling that I get. And that's what we were talking about, the clairsentience. When it comes from outside of me, there's a feeling associated with that. And a lot of times it's something that I wouldn't typically say. Sometimes we ask a question, but we kind of want the answer to be exactly what we want it to be, And what I've recognized is our guides aren't really here to tell us what to do. So a lot of people go into their readings and they want to be told the next step. What do I physically need to do? That rarely ever happens at all. What happens is a plethora of information is presented that is in your potentials, your vibration, to activate you to see how many steps you can possibly take in all these different directions, to actually encourage you to have the faith to just move in a specific direction without being limited in your perception. So these messages that we're getting right now, what's interesting is that they're changing so much because we've changed so quickly in our structure here on the planet. The way the planet's raised her vibration and the way we've raised our vibration has caused almost like this distance that we always had between our physical and light body to become less. So we had this really big difference in our speed of vibration with what we could perceive in physical and what was coming in non-physical. That speed of vibration is now starting to match. What that means is your own inner voice is pretty much connected to source energy. So it's not about that guide outside of you that's telling you what to do. It's about your higher self engaging with source energy to actually receive something that you need. So it's going to sound like you, in most situations. More and more, I'm finding that people who did have these really visceral types of experiences with their guides are coming to me and saying, what happened? I used to hear from Archangel Michael every day, and he used to sound a certain way, and now I can't hear him, but yet you can, because it's just changed. The vibration and the frequency that you're tapping into that information has changed. The time-space reality has changed. So you're becoming more integrated with that energy. That's the big difference. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so we'll spend a couple of minutes just updating. I really want to speak to some messages that I've been bringing in, and then we'll do the channeling. Ethan will pass around cards and pens so you can write your questions down. I typically take collectively based questions. It doesn't mean that you don't have something going on in your experience that's not important. We just phrase it in a way that everybody will have a benefit when they hear the question. So he'll pass those out as we're speaking. And we also take donations. We're here from the Flower of Life Center for Human Evolution. We have a huge expo. We have a kids movement. We're going to have a kids camp this summer for especially gifted children. Any donation you can make, which is not required to be here today, goes towards the rental of this room and our other programs, okay? All right, so interesting times we're in. Here we are in 2018. And this energy that we're stepping into, I think, is so important and so amazing. I have such high hopes for us because of what's been coming in lately. And I want to give the analogy of grids, portals, and dimensional energy, because that's truly what this message has been coming in, has related to. We've talked a lot in my channeling about the old grid and the new grid, or shifting our timeline from the third dimension into multi-dimension. And I've got a lot more information on that to share. So I want to start with us, okay, with our frequency, with our energy. And we run in patterns. We know this. So our energy runs in patterns. When we are connected to source energy, we hold this beautiful pattern that emanates that source energy and connects to all things. That's what source energy is. When we think about flower of life and that image and that representation of that image connecting to nature and all things, that's truly what we are. But in one of the channelings I did recently, the guides that stepped in were talking about looking at our pattern as a snowflake. So imagine snowflakes. Each snowflake has a unique and different energetic pattern. And then they fall through the sky, they fall to the ground, and you have a blanket of snow made up of all of these unique patterns that now becomes a one mass, right? A one entity, a one energy. So your snowflake pattern, your grid image, is what you create. It's your fragmented soul vibration moving through time and space in a unique pattern, which is your uniqueness, is why you came. We have things mixed up in that pattern that have come from our collective reality. We have imprints and beliefs that we're filtering through that are causing this pattern to change. Because every decision we make, everything we create affects that pattern. So when you think about expansion, we're constantly expanding that snowflake pattern based on what we do, who we are. And now, as we expand that pattern, it connects to other things. So just like that one snowflake comes in and connects to all the other snowflakes to create this mound of snow, we're doing this in our own lives. We're connecting to people, places, things, experiences through that pattern, through that grid. Now, our collective human race is the snow mound, right? And that snow mound is changing every single day. It's affected by the earth and the temperature of the earth. It's affected by the atmosphere and the rain or the precipitation. And we as a collective are also being affected this way. We have an effect, and everything else has an effect on us. So these unique patterns are actually creating the microcosm of the macrocosm, being the grids. We talk about the grids. Our collective human race and everything that it's done and everything that it's been created a grid. That grid was third dimensional, and this is really where I want to weave in the concept of the reptilian consciousness. We have a reptilian collective consciousness that exists on this planet. For those of you who haven't followed my channeling, there was a very catastrophic event that happened on their planet, caused them to separate timelines. They came here, they saw the ability to expand themselves, create, and they did that by almost hybridizing with us, right? It's a consciousness. Just like our snowflake pattern connects with other snowflake patterns, they're a snowflake pattern too. And their snowflake pattern had to merge and integrate with ours. We have this beautiful 12-strand DNA, okay? We have a carbon-based DNA, which is physically focused. We have a crystalline DNA, 12-strand, which is multidimensionally focused. What happened through time as this reptilian consciousness became integrated with our patterns is that we became very focused in our physical DNA, in our singularity, and that created a pattern as well. So the third dimensional grid, you consider that what we've created here as a collective consciousness. It's the way that we look at money. It's the way we operate with money. It's our governments. It's our healthcare institutions. It's the way we've looked at ourselves and how we have to fit ourselves into a mold, have a specific job to earn a specific amount of money. All of these things were limiting our perception of God or source. Well, now what's happened, which is really exciting, is that we've been changing that with every decision we've been making. So every unique snowflake, every singular being who's made a different decision to operate outside of that third dimensional grid pattern started a new grid, okay? This new grid is really the epitome of how we're going to change everything. But I didn't quite understand this until now. So what we've been doing as singular beings is we've created timelines that have been in that old grid, which is kind of broken, you know, not kind of, I'll say really broken, and this is why. The Council of Light that I work with, they are a race or a collective of many races. Their job is to oversee the universal time grid. So we have these two grids that connect to the Earth. There's a universal time grid that's the bigger aspect of that plugs into all these planets and star systems outside of the Earth. Well, this third dimensional grid or pattern we created was so discordant, meaning that it wasn't helping anyone else in the universe, that it became segmented from the time grid, from universal support. All that means is that we weren't able to tap into ancient knowledge and technologies, you know, things that we're bringing back now for healing and our ability to connect to source. All of the things that have been lost in our collective reality are because that grid became segmented, broken off from the rest of the universe. It had to, because it had the potential to actually affect other star systems, beings, and races. And it has to be held in integrity. So now we have this new grid, all right? This new grid is really where it's at. And what we've been doing is we've created timelines in the old grid. We had the old job, the degree, the relationship that wasn't working, right? All this stuff. And now we started creating timelines in the new grid. So we've been shifting our energy, you know, from this new grid to the, you know, old grid back and forth. And that grid has now become very stable. So if you followed my channeling, we've been talking about this as well. There's been a stabilization of that grid. It connects to universal support. What that means is these beings and collectives in the universe, they want that connection. They want those positive timelines to assist them. We often think that as humans, we're the lowest rung on the totem pole when it comes to multidimensional races, but that's not necessarily true. Every race in the universe goes through their own ascension timeline. You know, they're working with us, we're working with them, we're sharing information. This is a good thing. So as this grid became stabilized, we're now able to use it almost as what I would call an exit point for this reptilian consciousness, all right? Now remember, this reptilian consciousness is kind of hybridized with us. It's a part of our race. We don't think of it that way. We're like, oh, we've got all these reptilians doing these negative things on our planet. We need to bring them to justice. They're over here, we're over there. The way that they've run their energy is through us. Okay, we have humans in our government. that are making decisions that are reptilian in nature. Are they human? Are they reptilian? Are they somewhere in between? How do we bring this to justice? How do we change this? We have to consider universal law, right? Karma operates through universal law in these grid patterns. So the way universal law works here depends on the way the race, all of the humans in this race are vibrating. We can't keep these reptilians here and bring them to justice. If we keep these reptilians here, they become stuck in the loop of the old grid, and we're rerunning patterns of history that don't serve us. And we see this right now. How much have we seen come to the surface on the planet that's past history that we've been rerunning again that's destructive? It's in our own lives. It's in the collective. We see it all over the place. That's the old grid looping in a pattern that isn't going anywhere because it has nowhere to go but here. When we move into those timelines and we approach them with a new consciousness, we start to move that energy to the new grid. So this reptilian collective that's here, that we consider having to bring to justice and move off our planet, they have to ascend with us. That's the only way that this is going to clear up. So when we have whistleblowers on our planet that come forward, and oh my gosh, have we had so much lately? Disclosure it's been incredible, right? That's the proof. Why would that person come forward at this time and change the relationship to the timeline that they've been on if they weren't able to shift their consciousness and something happened that forced that change to take place? So everything that we're doing in our singular perspective, everything that we're doing in our singular lives is actually having an effect on the greater snowball of our collective vibration. That's exactly how we're going to shift this. And it's further confirmation how the guides will always send us back to our inner worlds. The wars that we're fighting within our family members, within our neighbors, within ourselves. Those wars, when we clear them up, those patterns start to connect and weave together. And that's new grid. And these people that are now coming forth with all of this information and helping us to move beyond where we've been stuck, stifled, restricted, they're being affected by this as well. So what I believe is that we're on a trajectory now to move beyond this replay of karmic energy that we've been experiencing, which is old grid, and move to a new grid, which allows us the freedom, the sovereignty. It matches positive timeline information. It matches ancient technologies. Anything that's been hidden from us, we think, is not really hidden. It's just existing somewhere else in the universe. In the same way that your unique snowflake pattern connected you to that right person that gave you the right information, we're doing that on a collective scale. We're connecting to the right information in the ancient cultures that knew how to activate inner technology, right? They knew how to connect to source and maintain that connection and harmonize it. And we're seeing this all over. So I'm really encouraged by this new information. I feel like this old grid is now going to disintegrate because it can only survive with the amount of energy that is put into it. One more message, and then I'm going to start the channeling. When we're looking at something like disclosure, we've talked about this before, we have the ability with a new consciousness to move that energy back into the old grid. So we can slow down the rate of speed that these things are happening on our planet by our response to them. Because our perception is everything. Our perception is everything. So if we are banging our fist on the table and feeling like we need to bring certain people to justice and we need to demand that things happen in a certain way, that's an old grid energy. It's broken. It doesn't work anymore. The more we focus into our own lives and bringing these multidimensional shifts and energies into our own lives, we don't have to bang our fist on the table. We're actually quickening the speed by which we match these timelines that are going to assist us in moving forward as a planet, as a race. And I think it's really incredible. Any questions about that? Yes.
I was wondering how, when you're getting these messages, how do you not get angry or feel emotions, fear, and all this other stuff, and accept what you're getting as their messages and not react to them?
I don't think it's that we're not supposed to get angry. I think the problem is we've been taught to stay angry. So we have a lot of things in our society that continue to mimic that anger and other things. Emotions are great, and I brought in, we talked a lot about in the last session about divine feminine, divine masculine, and Christ consciousness, because that's a whole other theme that it actually weaves into everything we just talked about. You can take divine masculine, divine feminine, and Christ consciousness and put it into this whole grid analogy, and it works exactly the same. But the message was, the divine masculine component of our structure is a thought process that evokes a frequency. The divine feminine is the emotion or the frequency that is a pathway back to God. It doesn't mean we don't feel. We can get angry about something, and we can express that anger. It's how we use that information and apply it in our lives that has everything to do with how this changes. So there's a lot of people that are stuck in the anger. There's a lot of people that are stuck in the frustration. It's mimicked back to us in everything we perceive on the news, on social media. When we stay in that path, in that lane, that's an old grid energy. It's very physical in the way that it's held in our structure. So we can be angry, and we can recognize things that are going wrong. But if we stay in that anger, then we're not assisting the whole process, right? We have to use that anger to actually take the pathway back to God, to actually make change, right? Does that make sense? Because I know where you're at. You know, when I first came into this whole world, it was my awakening to GMO food, fluoride, chemtrail, right? All this stuff that's going on, and I was really angry too. And I asked my guides, because we actually had a movement in Flower of Life that was called Conscious Action. And we had initiatives we were working on to create awareness for GMO food and fluoride and all these things. And we were really stuck because we thought, how are we going to change this? This is huge, right? This is huge. How are we going to change this? So I channeled on it. And what the guides told me was, only way this is going to change is vibrationally. That you have to understand that there's a reptilian consciousness that is manipulating your frequency into a lower vibration. And that's why these things appear on our planet. We think it's all physical because there's a physical decision made to put something physical in our water. But it has its base or its root in our vibration. So we're living in a world where we're seeing the manifestation of how we feel every day, of how we perceive or look through our experience every single day, right? And that's got to be the start of it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Further questions? Okay. All right. So we're going to channel. What I usually do is bring through a general message. And that general message will build on whatever was talked about last time. And then I take questions. And this is a vibrational transmission, so if you get lost in the words or the concepts, don't worry. All right? Okay. We are the Council of Light. We are pleased to begin. We are a 12th dimensional collective made up of multiple races who have a singular intention. That intention is to ensure that the universal time grid maintains its integrity, such that all races are expanding in alignment with their divine record and blueprint. We also have expanded in our collective consciousness. As the universe continues to evolve, there are changes that take place within collective forms of consciousness. There are collectives that are made up specifically of divine beings of light that are here to support your evolution here on the planet as a human race. Those collectives have also continued to expand along with your intention. Where you have ended in your vibrational relationship to the old grid energy and where you are now accepting a new platform for creation. It is our intention today to bring forth a message in regards to the new grid, what we believe is taking place now upon your planet in relationship to your divine blueprint, and how the earth is responding to your frequency. We start with the relationship of the grid to time-space reality or sound vibration. We have recognized your analogy of grids or portals and the way those designs are held. But what we wish for you to now vision into is the relationship of any grid or design to sound or light. As many of you are familiar, Mother Earth holds a specific sound or a harmonic, a frequency that is made up of all things. Her resonance is the equilibrium of all beings that inhabit her space, coming together in a one unison. What that means is that everything, every element, every being on her planet holds a connection to the sound vibration that she offers. And this sound vibration is changing as humanity continues to evolve. But also, we wish for you to recognize that beyond humanity, your planetary structures on Earth, your animals on Earth, the elements on Earth are also changing very significantly to match your vibration. We want to speak specifically to these Earth aspects so that you understand some of the changes that we anticipate as you continue to walk this timeline. Because many would question, what is it that allows this new grid to rebirth the physical aspects of our Earth? Those physical aspects that have seen demise, that have seen a tainting of their original or organic state. And what we would say is that the grid has everything to do with the way in which you manifest your physical reality. So we want to bring this conversation to you from a different vantage point than the singular structure into the collective. We want to speak about universal law, the way sound harmonics works in the universe throughout the grid, and how you are so connected to that in this moment. In the old grid, there was a disconnection from the universe. And the reason for that was the sound harmonic that Mother Earth held, being amplified through the grid, was discordant in nature. It was a speed that was not equal to the harmony of the integration, the harmony or the integration of your multidimensional structure or the multidimensional structure of many beings that exist off-planet. As this grid became segmented from the universal time grid, the Earth began to change because she no longer was able to tune in to universal harmonies or sound vibration to assist her in maintaining her organic state or that which upon her held that organic state. Think of it as Mother Earth also changing in her frequency as that old grid became segmented. But the new grid energy harmonizing her inner structure or sound vibration has several different benefits for humanity that we wish to speak of. This sound vibration, you can think of it as the catalyst to operate in your crystalline structure that is embedded within your DNA. The reason for this is that your 12-strand DNA connects through light consciousness to that which matches itself. You can think of the DNA as a record. And if you think of a record being held within your structure, perhaps this is the Akashic record of the entire universe. It would be limited in your perception only to those DNA strands that were physical in the operation of the old grid. The sound harmonic would not support you accessing your crystalline DNA and all of the information that lies within it. Within this new grid, the sound harmonic that Mother Earth has been amplified to is equal to what is held within your crystalline DNA. So there's a sound vibration that you also hold within you that is very similar to Mother Earth. You are offering it and you are also receiving it. But there is an interesting play that goes on between humanity and her Mother Earth being. Everything that you are choosing to experience and create in your singular reality has an effect on how you're able to use this sound harmonic in your own life. And we'll give you an example of this. Let us say that you have an amazing opportunity that has come to your doorstep. And this amazing opportunity requires much change from you. It would require you to leave behind that which you know in order to move into the unknown, to accept something that would put you on a trajectory to live in a way that was quite different than what you had ever known before. As this opportunity comes to your doorstep, you begin to filter it through your imprints or through the design that you hold most resonant to your sound harmonic. Meaning at times, if you are operating only in your physical DNA, you are limited to match the information multidimensionally that would expand your view of this opportunity. Perhaps the expansive view of this opportunity would be that it was purposeful, it was supported, it was exciting. But in your human form, you are limited in your perception to view this potential as a very narrow pathway to physical. You began to think about all of the things that you would leave behind that were known, and you would begin to project into the future about all of the things that may happen that were detrimental to you if you chose this pathway. This is how old grid and new grid energy and harmonic works. Because when you're operating in the fullness of your crystalline DNA, the vibrational record is expansive. The way in which you feel about your physical reality has to change, and the way you perceive your physical reality has to change. Because within that crystalline DNA, with all of it vibrating in the original sound harmonic it was created in, you have a full connection to source. You've always had this full connection to source, but you've been limited in your availability to use it to make decisions. So in collective reality, many beings that are connected to the universal time grid are operating in their crystalline structure so that when changes appear in their reality, they're able to accept the frequency of the future in a way that it is already seen. And we want to bring you to the analogy of time. There truly is no physical time here on this planet. Future, past, present, they are all the same vibration. But what you've been led to believe is that your future is something that is only linear and must be physically controlled by you. But if you were in the fullness of your crystalline DNA, you would realize that a future trajectory of this opportunity has already taken place in many formats. And you would understand that there are many outcomes or potentials that were supported and, in fact, vibratory matches to what you have just received. We want to use the word courage here because we know that humans will relate to it. But what we believe is this new grid, as it activates a sound vibration within you to utilize your crystalline DNA, brings forth the courage or the faith or the ability to choose your relationship to energy differently. It's a wider vantage point than what many of you have had the capacity to hold. And the reason for that is the sound harmonic within Mother Earth is vibrating in such a speed that all beings upon her are now accessing that source energy. You may still filter this source energy connection through that narrow pathway, regardless of your crystalline structure. This is your free will operative component coming into play. We want to discuss the way that we see the Earth changing in response to the grid and many of the decisions that you'll be making, because we believe it's important for you to understand what's taking place now and the way in which what's taking place now will have a bearing on your future. This amplification of sound harmonic means that of every being on this planet, whether it be an elemental being such as water, a plant such as a being such as a plant, an animal being, or a human being, is now operating more in their crystalline state or structure than ever have before. What that means is they're tapping into future timelines of rebirth, where animals have been extinct. They are using their crystalline DNA to now bridge the gap between the old grid extinction and the new grid expansion. This is energetic. Plants and animal beings have perception. They just use it in a different frequency than what humans do. They have been affected by humans because humans have the ability to limit their perception through the mind, where although these organisms often have a mind, the mind is not as easily manipulated or interrupted as humans. So as the reptilian consciousness that has been spoken of in this transmission has operated here on this planet, they focused you in the mind, which just has an effect on the animals, the plants, and the elemental structures. But now, as the new grid supports the crystalline structure, become more attuned to your divine feminine presence, the expansion of information is something that we see as very beneficial here on this planet. We ask that you realize that every decision that you make is exasperating the energy between where you have come and where you are going. It's quickening the pace of these future timelines coming back into your reality. There are already potentials that exist, and those potentials are being matched by this sound harmonic. We're very pleased to see that this interconnection with the universe is benefiting your planet, and it is our intention to maintain that balance as you go forward. We believe that you have reached a critical mass. Those that are vibrating in this new grid have now forced a new collective timeline to be rebirthed. And that collective timeline holds much weight with universal support. We're very pleased to have brought this message forward today, and we are very pleased to also take questions.
Are all the children being born in these years, in the past 10 to 20 years, considered hybridized, and what does that really mean?
Okay. The Pleiadians want to step in, and they're very pleased to do so. First, we would give the generalization that you are all hybridized beings in one way or another. You have a 12-strand DNA that holds a relationship to a variety of different beings and star systems throughout your universe. And as you uniquely connect to information and create here, you're hybridizing yourselves within your own DNA. But the children that are coming, we want to especially say that the analogy of crystalline DNA being in its fullness is the reason that these children have a higher capacity to shift the planet and to also be categorized by you as hybridized. There is a hybridization program that is taking place within the universe that we will speak to as well. But we want to classify the difference between that hybridization program and what's taking place in an organic state. You as humans, becoming more crystallized in your DNA, are creating humans that are holding that crystalline DNA in an organic state. You are matching frequencies of ancient timelines that are showing up in the DNA of the children that you are birthing. They hold a specific auric state that is unaffected by that which in the universe would normally move these children into a lower state of vibration. In other words, they come with the capacity to be crystal and to be protected from those elements on your planet that are not in the best interest or best suited for their evolution. Now, the hybridization project that is taking place universally is something we wish to speak of. There are many children who are within this hybridization project that desire to enter your Earth frequency. There is not just one hybridization project that is taking place, but there are many. There are races that hold specific intentions to hybridize humans with their race in order to evolve their DNA to a state in which universal connection can take place. Much of this hybridization began because of your old grid energy. In other words, there was such a disconnection from the universal time grid that beings of light were using specific tools such as hybridization to bring a higher consciousness to your planet. They could not enter that grid. They would not manipulate that grid. They would not override your free will, but they would look for ways in which to enter your planet in a higher vibrational state. And this is what many of the hybridization programs are intended to do. These children in particular come with a different physical structure as well as a crystalline structure. And that is why many of them, although some have come forward in human form, are not able or ready to enter your Earth atmosphere. There are aspects of their physical structure that vibrate differently than humans that would be interpreted as detrimental by your human race. And although there is a critical mass that has reached the new time grid energy to stabilize it, we believe that there is still a ways to go here on the planet with humanity accepting these hybridized children. There are many conduits on the planet in this time that are preparing the Earth for the entry of these children, and we believe that their work is contributing greatly to their arrival on your planet.
With references to the earlier question, how can we best work with these children who have been adversely affected by families in our society and who are seen as drug addicted or have emotional problems?
The Pleiadians step in. We want to speak to the emotional frequency first because we believe that this is a very important aspect of these children and their integration into a society that is now birthing through a new grid. Emotional frequency has a very important part or role within any human structure because the emotional frequency is the way in which balance or harmonization is achieved. When a situation takes place on the physical planet and you are responding to that situation with some sort of emotion, as that emotion is expressed, you have the ability to come back into harmony with your physical and non-physical structure. Emotional frequencies are also the pathway into source energy. In other words, when you have a physical experience and you have an accompanying emotion, if you are in the present moment with that emotion, it can allow you to accept information that will assist you on that path. You see, many humans have not used their emotional body in this way. They believe that when they're in a state of disruption in their experience, that the emotion must express in order to help them to stay calm or to stay in alignment with that experience. Or their emotional body runs free in a way that doesn't complement their overall consciousness. But when you connect the consciousness to the emotion, there's always something that's the driving factor that will allow you to receive more information about what's happening within your current reality. So let's talk about these children and the way the emotional body is structured on them. Because it's important to note that they all come with different, or we'll say very unique structures that relate to crystalline vibration and dimension. Some of them have fully integrated their emotional body to the point that it may seem as if they are despondent or not responding to their experience, when in fact, they don't need to respond to it in the same way that humans do. In other words, they don't have a similar response in human form to what other humans may have, so they are classified as different because those emotions do not present themselves similarly. Others are in such a state of chaos that their emotional body is expressing at such a high speed or high rate that they are found to be disrupted in society. This is another way that you segment these crystalline beings. For us as Pleiadians, we have gone through the integration of the emotional body such that we understand and recognize the way it's gone through many transitions. We see that here on your planet, the most important thing to recognize with these children is that you must meet them exactly where they are as unique soul beings, and that you must set up a structure around them that's appropriate to their emotional response or release. This may be assisting them in balancing or harmonizing their emotional frequency in ways that are not restricted to what society has already created, because they don't necessarily fit very well into those very narrow restrictions. These are expectations that they have to maintain a certain volume or a certain speed or a certain rate of emotion within any certain circumstance. This is a different way of looking at understanding the emotional body. It's expressing creatively that which is within that will assist them in coming into harmony. The creative energy is something that we also want to bring into this conversation. Most of the reason that these crystalline beings are struggling so much in their emotional body is that their creative essence is not allowed to be expressed in its divine light. Humans have learned throughout time to suppress their creative energy because they have been taught that the expression of the creative energy is not a worthwhile aspect of their experience. But as these new beings step onto your planet, the creative expression of their crystalline energy is why they come. So to fit them into a specific criteria that limits their ability to express their creativity very uniquely holds them back from their harmonic balance. And this is why many of them struggle. So quite simply, we would say allowing them the freedom to express creatively that which is within their emotional frequency, to bring them back into balance and to recognize that they are unique here on the planet in the way that they are here to also create.
Is there a difference between a crystalline child and a crystalline soul color? Are all crystalline children, do all crystalline children have a crystalline soul color?
Mary Magdalene steps in, and she's very pleased. And she wishes to say that we cannot classify any crystalline child as the same as another. What we can say is that there are waves of energy that are coming to your planet in divine alignment to assist humanity with that which it has already projected through time. In other words, humanity has many desires that it wishes to see fulfilled. And those desires have already been fulfilled in vibrational energy by the manifestation of these children. They come with a very unique intention to assist humanity in fulfilling these desires. Their crystalline structure is based on several things. It is based on the consciousness of humanity and the earth vibration. It is based on that which they emanate from as a collective consciousness. And it is also attuned to that which is their collective assignment. They hold different vibrational speeds in relationship to these assignments, and those vibrational speeds may be interpreted as color or light. Very similarly to the message that the council brought in today in relationship to the new grid, having a sound harmonic, sound, light, color, they're all interpretations of vibration. So we believe that as these children enter your atmosphere, holding different levels of hybridized DNA and crystallized DNA, they have the potential to emanate differently in the information and the intentions that they hold. And this is why they are segmented from each other. Many of you classify these children as crystalline or rainbow, for example, or indigo, due to your interpretation of the information that they hold. They are just separate collective entities coming forth with a very similar intention, and that is to heal the planet in some way, shape, or form. They are all taking this collective intention on through their singular interpretation. And as they enter this earth atmosphere, they have the ability to express this in their own unique way because free will is a part of their experience.
How do you break through childhood programming to the subconscious when consciously I understand and I'm ready for the change?
We get the Arcturians actually stepping in for this question. The Pleiadians may also speak, and they're welcome. They're very welcome to come forward. We wish to speak to patterns that are formed throughout childhood and energetically the way those manipulate your structure and how they become very strong components of your perception and further creation. As in child form, you are resonating with the earth in a way that is uninterrupted. And this is why many can acknowledge that newborn babies come in with this freshness about them, their ability to maintain their frequency through their emotional body and live harmonized and stable. But as they learn and as they grow, subjected to what humanity has already put in place or has subjected many others to, they develop these imprints and these patterns. They also have experiences or karma that erupts in their singular expression that leaves these imprints or patterns behind in a very expansive way. We want to speak to what these imprints are or these beliefs are, because when you look at a belief, you must break it down into its energetic components. Quite simply, we can have a belief from childhood that states that we are not worthy. That we are not worthy belief in its energy is made up of a variety of experiences that have left a similar imprint. So by the time I am not worthy is patterned into your energy, you've already experienced that I am not worthy statement in so many ways that it's become a very significant aspect of your experience. Now, whether it's a valid belief or not, whether you've just perceived yourself as not worthy at times when in fact you were, or perhaps you were not worthy enough in reality to receive what it was that you needed to receive in your own mind, that energy exists as a pattern. That pattern becomes repeated not just in things that present worth to you in your life, but in all areas that you are creating in. Because when an imprint like this exists, it doesn't just affect that which it matches in its frequency. It becomes so ingrained in our reality that everything that we are creating in our potential vibration holds a pattern similar to it. The way in which those patterns are broken are effectively two processes in physical, one in physical, one in non-physical. The physical process, we'll say, is something that humanity is very far away from adopting. And the reason for this is that there was a time on your planet in which rebirthing took place through the chakras. There were instantaneous manifestations that took place, and those instantaneous manifestations were reliant on physical energy repatterning itself in very visceral ways. If you saw an instantaneous manifestation take place before your eyes, you would have a completely different belief pattern than what was limiting. And in that moment, everything in your vibration would change. We consider the Christ timeline an example of this. Many who walked within the Christ timeline experienced instantaneous manifestations, such to the degree that anything that was discordantly patterned in their belief structure had to immediately change and release because of what they physically saw, experienced. The non-physical path is the way that we believe humanity is best attuned to. What that means is that there are many healers who have adapted their practices in this Earth timeline to address these imprints. They've gone into the imprint and tried to take an inventory of what exists within that I am not worthy statement. They took the time to revisit every one of those timelines and experiences. And sometimes this has been very helpful because in the unraveling of that knot of I am not worthy, the straightening out of the timelines and the ability to perceive them from a different vantage point allowed that imprint to disappear. So revisiting your past timelines with a new consciousness can enable you to let go of patterns or beliefs that you are holding that are restricting you. But better than this, what we believe, is that repatterning your energy to a higher vibrational sound harmonic will override that pattern such that it must also disappear. So if you have a pattern that says, I am not worthy, instead of going through that pattern and picking it apart and taking inventory of what exists there, design a pattern in your life that reinforces your worth. And as you do this, what you will find is that the more you affirm that worth and the more you take the path of moving your energy towards that worth, you don't have to worry so much about what you've experienced in childhood and what all those timelines were that made up that imprint. Because now, a new imprint that overrides the old one is taking over. And it's clearing that which has restricted you. We always recommend that positively aligned frequencies and patterns are highest advised to overcome those that are discordant.
I would love to get a transmission that discusses the upcoming solar flash quantum jump event. There are so many talking and seeing this massive wave hitting Earth as early as the next 2 months. We can already feel the tip of this wave and all the solar flares intensifying more and more. Thank you.
We are the Council. We are pleased to speak of this event. And we first would say that human beings are interpreting everything that is taking place on your planet, oftentimes in physical form. Remember, there's nothing wrong with physical, and there's nothing wrong with filtering everything that you are perceiving through physical, but sometimes it becomes a bit skewed in its interpretation. The solar frequencies that you have been experiencing have been becoming stronger throughout their progression due to your response to them. You see, these solar frequencies are not just connected to your record. They are not just aligned with a planetary energy or ascension code. They are actually being responded to by you and responding to your response. So every time that a solar frequency matches your planetary energy, you are receiving a flood of information. That flood of information, as it becomes integrated by you, changes your vibration such that a calling forth of more is activated. And this is the progression that you have seen. The solar flash that has been talked about is something that is lying within your record. So it is a bit different than the call and response that we have brought forward. This record energy that we speak of is within Mother Gaia, but it is a new grid energy. In other words, the activation of the grid is now changing the way that Mother Earth's record is held. Similar things happen to you. You have a record, you have intentions. As you raise your consciousness, you take new paths with those records and intentions. You have ascension codes that are triggered. Those ascension codes may change as your consciousness or dimension changes. The same is happening with Mother Earth. So the solar flash, it is actually a collaboration between Mother Earth and the solar frequencies such that a harmonization takes place. This harmonization is directly related to the dissertation we brought through, or the transmission, about sound frequencies or sound harmonics within Mother Earth. We believe that your collective consciousness is calling so much into your future timeline energy that it's bringing back experiences that have been had here before. This solar flash or solar experience has taken place before in another timeline. And this is truly what humanity is perceiving. It's perceiving a revisiting of a past timeline that has happened previously that is now coming back, or the potential is coming back very strongly to your planet. However, in saying this, we would always give the analogy vibrationally of what we see in the moment, knowing that this may change. What we believe is that the way in which this solar flash has been interpreted as one event will actually be staggered as many. So the way in which your vibration is currently matching this potential opportunity is slowing the speed of its integration. We don't say this because you're harmful in any way in its experience, or you're slowing the speed intentionally such that you don't advance. What we're alluding to is the fact that as these solar energies come, the integration is far greater than what you may have interpreted. And so there's much time that has to elapse between these solar frequencies to catch up in your physical energy. So what we believe is, as opposed to one event, we believe there will be several events that will be very intense in their solar nature, that are intended to stabilize the grid further, activate your consciousness, and connect you through the crystalline core of Mother Earth. This will bring through a series of ancient timelines that will be matching what's currently taking place on your planet. We believe this is a prelude to further aspects of disclosure on your planet, as well as an expansion of your extrasensory gifts, and the way that those extrasensory tools and gifts will be able to become accessible by the human collective.
As a collective, are we becoming breatharians? I ask this as I have had a sense around that and a deep feeling that we're headed in that direction. I had a different path and a relationship to food, nourishment, energy since nearly the start of this lifetime. I had a sense that we are scratching the surface with our understanding in how food is translated into energy.
We are the Pleiadians. We are pleased to answer this question. There are many on your planet who are transcending the physical and moving more into their crystalline state than ever before. As has been mentioned, the light body and the distance between the light body and the physical body is becoming inherently closer in its dimensional reality. As this happens, you will begin to modify your physical structure. Many who raise their consciousness will step onto a new timeline with the way they are nourishing themselves that matches the information that they are accessing. So in other words, as you move through time and space and you are raising your consciousness in the same way that cosmic timelines are matched or ancient history comes forward, you also have a relationship to that within your DNA. And you will begin to notice that the way in which you request nourishment or require nourishment in the body has to adapt to the information that you are holding. We believe that the physical body is going to change very much in the next 5 linear years on this planetary structure. The physical body can no longer hold the dense information that is accumulated here within your foods, within your water, within your planetary structure. This is evident in the way that discordant patterns are being presented in disease and the relationship to your highest potential of physical health. So many in this time are beginning to go through a process of detoxifying their bodies and implementing more crystalline source energy. Crystalline source energy, or becoming a breatharian, actually relies on a different source consciousness, because those that are able to achieve this here in human form cannot filter through those belief patterns or imprints that have been spoken about previously. Because humans have defined their time-space reality as an energy of physical. And you believe that you are reliant on physical means in order to physically nourish a physical body. And because you believe this so strongly, the relationship to crystalline energy or prana makes it very difficult for you to accept in your source consciousness that this may sustain you. So there's several factors here at play. The more you are overriding these discordant patterns and repatterning them to higher consciousness, the more adept you'll become to accessing prana or crystalline energy or breath as your nourishment. However, we also believe that as your Earth is changing in its atmospheric state, this prana is beginning to change as well. This new crystalline grid or multidimensional grid having this universal support is going to change the way that the Earth atmosphere is related or connected to your internal and external structure. In other words, that divine pattern that you hold is becoming more collective in nature than ever before, and collective energy operates differently than singular. So we do believe that more humans will be accessing crystalline source breath for nourishment as this progression takes place, and that the physical body is going to respond in its material. We believe by the time you get to the end of this 5-year trajectory of transition, that your physical material will be more directed through your consciousness than ever before, because this is the benefit of becoming a breatharian on your planet or using prana or breath for nourishment. You're actually bringing in information that is a light source consciousness, and light equals light. So if you have a physical manifestation of density and you're trying to direct it through consciousness, it can be quite different because there's not a vibrational match. But when there is a light source consciousness and you're trying to direct physical material through that, it's an instantaneous manifestation. So we believe that human beings are on a path to living longer lives in better health due to the ability to use this prana or breath as the earth consciousness changes and your physical structures harmonize with it as time goes on.
Are we getting closer, or is there more available information coming through from our galactic family in regard to multidimensional travel in the physical realm? I know we travel within to all places. I understand we connect and have real multidimensional experiences. My question is that happening anytime soon or to a greater intensity here in this physical realm of existence in physicality?
This is the Andromedan Collective, and they are very pleased to enter this transmission to speak about time travel. And as mentioned in this intention, there are 2 forms of time travel that currently take place within the universe. There is that which happens within your crystalline structure, and there is that which happens in a visceral physical response. There are many beings who have been able to access and implement time travel technologies, but you must consider that in the same way that this message today has been focused on the divine pattern within, that every race and every consciousness holds its own unique pattern, such that any technology for time travel, whether it be internal or external, must be adapted to that specific consciousness or pattern to be successful. Now, throughout time, there have been applications of this technology, especially here on the Earth. Those technologies have often been hidden from humanity because of their potential to override this integrity of the grid that has been spoken of as well, meaning that humans were not holding the frequency to match a higher state of consciousness to move themselves through space and time physically and manifest in a different form. We want to give the analogy of ancient cultures. There are many gods and goddesses that came during the times of ancient cultures that existed on your planet. When they came to your planet, even as they were traveling through time with a desire to manifest in physical, they held a different crystalline structure, such that when they came into this Earth atmosphere, they had to manifest into a physical form that would match the information that was held within them. This is why many allude to giants or beings that were very large of the time. The physical manifestation of their crystalline material was so great that it caused a relationship to size on this planet. Human beings have not allowed themselves to understand this in the way that must be fully understood, to take this technology and use it for the advantage of themselves and all races. In other words, if a human were to use a time travel technology at this moment and travel through time-space to manifest in physical form on another planet or star system, their structure would indeed do the same. Their information might not be as great in their crystalline structure as the race that they intend to visit, so they may manifest in a form that is less significant, perhaps a plant or a relationship to a planetary element that would not enable them the fullness of that interaction. So as time travel is experienced through your inner technology, what you're doing is you're raising your vibration such that time travel in the physical can be enhanced. The reason for that is the more information that you hold within your crystalline structure, the better adept that you are as manifesting into physical with a relationship to match those that you wish to also interact with. We believe that many of these technologies, as they already exist, will also come to the surface as the new grid energy becomes further stabilized and used. The reason for this is not that you're meant to travel in physical so much as it is that there are beings of light that will enter your Earth atmosphere and desire a relationship. There will be more hybridization going on here on this planet than ever before. The relationship to hybridization will actually enhance physical time travel. Those also, one final message that we'll bring forward about this is those also that have understood the dynamic of shape-shifting, meaning they can leave their physical body and manifest that physical imprint elsewhere, have understood a relationship to source energy that humans have not been able to hold. Again, this is a dimensional relationship or a speed to vibration that allows this type of transmission or travel to take place. It's shifting your consciousness outside of your body with a relationship to physical form that allows it to instantaneously manifest elsewhere. We also believe that humans will have this ability as they continue to progress in their consciousness.
A further clarification on multidimensional travel. I wonder if the use of cymatics is if it was incorporated, could using water and sound to create sacred geometry patterns, such as circles or possibly the flower of life or a Merkaba, which can be formed from small balls and circles. Will that change the molecular structure, our molecular structure, so that we can pierce space and time through the vibration created?
We are the Pleiadians, and yes, we agree with this statement. The molecular state of water, or the vibration that you hold at the cellular level, is equal to the pattern that you hold in your overall frequency. Now, the way in which this takes place is a sound vibration is something that has been alluded to quite frequently in this transmission. So we want to take you back to the concept of cymatics, What it is doing is it is mimicking the sound vibration within any collective consciousness to change it to a relationship to a different dimension. When you are using sound healing, for example, on your planet, that sound vibration coming through your physical structure into your energetic or crystalline structure, which can be held in water, repatterns it specifically to an energy that is relatable to that which the intention holds. This is why you've seen many who can manipulate water structures on your planet through intention. The intention is a very significant part of any exchange of sound vibration. So when a sound healing takes place, as the repatterning of the crystalline source water is held, a new experience is potential for you. And that is tied into what your potentials hold in that moment. In other words, we want to break this down in a way that you would understand. If you are to enter a sound healing in this moment in your physical structure relaxes into the sound such that the energy repatterns your cellular water. Within you, there are many potentials that exist. And that cellular water may be changed such that a new potential becomes magnetized. And that new potential, as you walk out the door of that sound healing, has everything to do with the next decision that you make and the next experience that you have. We want to take this to a higher perspective now, because in the same way that Mother Earth has changed her sound vibration or her sound harmonic, the water bodies upon Mother Earth are a valuable tool or valuable source to also change the consciousness of Mother Earth and adapt new timelines. We believe that this is already taking place. There are a variety of alignments, solar and otherwise, that are coming to activate her crystalline core to create this sound vibration that's changed the Schumann frequency in order to change your water bodies on the Earth. You can consider your water bodies on the Earth portals of sound vibration to activate humanity. In other words, if you, as a collective consciousness, were to place intention into your water bodies through meditation, the sound vibration of that intention would change the water body to accentuate the timeline upon your planet Earth.
In a recent channeling, you brought up the subject of neutrality and unconditional love. Being independent can sometimes be perceived by others as indifferent or neutral, and this can cause a sense of lack for others in a relationship because they feel their feelings aren't being validated. Why do some human beings feel they need their feelings validated by someone else when this neutrality feels very natural for others?
This is the Jeremiah Collective stepping in, and they're very pleased. This all goes back to the way in which humanity has been patterned, and this has been a constant theme of this transmission. The ego structure has everything to do with the way in which you interpret your reality. Now, many are in the process of trying to move away from having an ego structure, and we are here to advise that the ego structure is also very beneficial in the way that it was installed within your technology and how it is meant to assist you in your perception of your reality. When you are feeling independence, let's say you are in a state of independence to the point where you don't require others to feel joy, you don't require others to feel important or to feel at peace or at ease, that energy can be held by you in a way that can be positive or discordant. It all relies on how you are filtering that experience through you and perceiving it through others. Because that independence, it can hold you back from the grid alignments of others that are here to accentuate your experience and personality, because ultimately you hold contracts with many, and those contracts are here to support your soul evolution. That independence, it can also be seen by others as a disconnection from them or in a way that's discordant. In your belief that you must uphold a certain frequency to enable another to feel a certain way, we see this very prominent on your planet through a connection of the reptilians. And this reptilian collective is always trying to hold you within a singular structure. We'll bring in the concept of comparison or judgment. Comparison or judgment was never a construct of your reality until it was taught to humans. What humans always knew was that they would filter their reality through the ego structure and connect to others to enhance their experience. These others that would come into their timelines would be a very valuable tool to accentuate their own experience through the eyes of another. And what's happened here is that the ego structure has been turned on you such that you are judging yourselves through the experience of others or through the way others show up in your reality. So the question becomes, is it your responsibility to respond to someone in a specific way, regardless of how you feel? If you hold that independence or that ability to maintain the ego structure without the feedback from others, how can you come to harmony with that which is in your experience that is requiring the other? What we would say to this is that there's truly never anything in your experience that is not mirroring something to you within that needs to be harmonized. So if you find the potential to connect with those who are requiring something of you detrimental to your experience, it is because they are here to teach you the way in which your ego structure might be holding back or resisting something that is needed by them. Every relationship is a two-way street. Every soul partnership or soul contract offers a valuable tool, and that is to enhance your relationship to the other and to the self. So instead of looking at this as neutrality, because neutrality in this circumstance may be defined as something other than what we've intended it to be, perceive it as your unique ability to be in alignment with another such that your ego structure is accentuating both your experience and that experience of that person. It doesn't have to walk outside of the means of its service. It only has to be in balance with itself such that it sees what it needs to see and receives what it needs to receive. Neutrality is something we'll touch on as well. Neutrality is not the ignoring of that which is discordant in one's life. Neutrality is the acceptance of everything in the present moment and seeing it as purposeful in the higher plan. So when you're in a state of neutrality, you're feeling the discord, you're feeling the emotions, you're feeling the excitement, whatever it may be, knowing that in this moment, it's connecting to the next. And in that moment, it's connecting to the next. Neutrality is a present moment frequency with what is. And if you continue to maintain that present moment frequency with a higher connection to your source energy and relationship to all soul contracts, you'll be in divine balance.
A lot of conversation was made today about the reptilian consciousness and the current state of the world. There are a lot of amazing things happening right now in the world with technologies and a lot of people going through awakening experiences. What role does the blockchain technology have in this future of the human civilization and the awakening?
What we see is there are a variety of technologies such as this that are being developed more as an open source consciousness. In other words, these technologies are coming to light because the human relationship to its own sovereignty is changing. The consciousness of humanity is allowing itself to accept its own sovereignty in such a way that it must manifest things to support that in other dimensional realities beyond its own perception. The collective consciousness is now moving towards a state of organic balance. What that means is that the technologies that are supporting that organic balance must open the space around them such that humans can interact with them from their sovereignty. That sovereignty is always moving and changing. And we'll relate this technology specifically to other technologies on your planet that have been very stagnant. For example, you have an energetic system that supports your overall physical living. That energetic system has devised a plan around it or support around it in such a way that it is structured. And that structure has become defined and solidified by your conscious interpretation of it, such that it is the only means, it is the only way to interact with that means, and in some way, just because of its hierarchical interpretation, it limits your sovereignty. This technology in particular, coming to the planet, opens the field of potential such that human beings can interact with their own sovereignty by receiving that which they need from natural resources. These natural resources already being abundant on your planet and not needing to be restricted or placed in any hierarchy.
Could you conclude this session, please?
We're very pleased. We are the council. And as those who step forward through love and light, we are in great support of humanity in this time as it currently walks its ascension timeline. We are walking it right along with you through the new grid, interacting with you in many ways in the non-physical. And as you continue to accentuate your own experience, we are watching and we are cheering and we are in great love and support. Many blessings, the council. $5 minutes? Yeah. Any questions? For those of you who follow us in different areas of the country, we have some things coming up. Ethan and I just booked Sedona, so we'll be back in Sedona May 11th, 12th, and 13th. We're going to be doing a weekend intensive. So this is going to be our general events on Friday, and then a Saturday, Sunday intensive for light workers who are looking to shift their timelines from the old grid to the new grid and working on practical means to do that. We're also going to be out at a SETI ranch in Washington State with James Gilliland and his crew of multidimensional beings in July. So look for that. We'll be posting that. We have our expo in September and the kids camp. I just want to touch on that. So those of you who aren't familiar, we have a youth movement. These are for children who are channeling, who are hearing from spirit, who have energy gifts, interested in these topics. It's going to be phenomenal. We've got a space at Kensington Park here in the state, and we are flying in a variety of teachers. We're going to be working on intuitive art. We're going to be teaching telekinesis. We're going to be working on channeling mediumship, energy, all this stuff with the kids. So if you have a child or you know of a child who'd be interested in this, you can sign up for our email list or keep checking back with our website because we're going to be listing the details for that very soon.
Do you have the dates?
The dates are the first weekend in July. What are the dates? August, sorry. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. First weekend in August. Yeah.
What's the best way to find out more information about the Sedona intensive?
Facebook or join our newsletters because we'll be emailing out when we come up with the schedule for that. Yeah, and Ethan can talk more about it. If you haven't experienced Ethan, stick around. He does a great energy transfer, and he has a light worker program where he helps people who are moving from, more conventional types of careers to stepping into their gifts in a really big way on the planet. And that's really what we're trying to bring into this Sedona intensive is people who are moving between timelines and really need some practical advice or information about how to do that in a way that they're supported and, fulfill that need within them to grow and expand. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Remember, this is a vibrational transmission, all right? Not just about the words, as you all integrate. Thank you.